All right, Lego fans, I am about to play you the sweetest sound, in my opinion, in all of Legodom. Are you ready for it? Here goes. You know what that is? That is the sound of opening and pouring out a pick-a-brick order. Hi, I'm Tom Bray since 1954. I'm really glad you're here. Welcome back to my audio-only podcast, even though it's partially hosted on YouTube. I don't do any video with it. It's just audio only. And if you're listening to me on Apple Podcasts or any other podcast venue, I really appreciate you being here as well. And today I want to talk about a few things. But the first thing I want to talk about is Pick-a-Brick and just what it means to me and why I think, at least for me, it engenders all kinds of nostalgia. Even though I didn't grow up really playing with Lego, it's still extremely nostalgic to me to order Pick-a-Brick and to receive it in the mail. And I want to talk about why I think that is. But first, I need to introduce you to something you may not know from history. You'll know it if you're around my age or if you've heard tell of it, but it is something that we used to call the Sears Christmas catalog. Yes, the Sears Christmas catalog. And Sears Roebuck was a catalog company. That's how they started, where you could order things out of a catalog and they would mail order them to you. And they started I believe they started in the late 1800s. And Sears just recently went bankrupt and went out of business. Not too many years ago, there were still anchor stores at Sears. So you're probably aware of what Sears is. But the whole idea of the Sears Christmas catalog may be alien to you. And let me explain. So when I grew up, Sears had both brick and mortar stores and at the same time a catalog sales division. And in fact, when I was a kid, my mother would frequently go into the store to look at the catalog and order things out of it, particularly if that inventory wasn't in stock on the sales floor. And that was one of the strengths of Sears, is that they had this, warehouses wherever they were all over the country, I imagine. But they had these warehouses that you could get just about anything from Sears and Roebuck. And if they didn't have it in the store, you'd go and you'd look in the catalog and there would be somebody to help you and you'd place an order and it would be shipped to you. So as an extension of that, there was the Sears catalog that got mailed to your house if you were on their mailing list. And they periodically put the catalogs out during the year. I think there was a spring catalog and a fall catalog. But most importantly, there was a Christmas catalog. And what made this catalog so exciting for someone like me who grew up in the early 1960s, really late 50s, early 60s, was that the Sears Christmas catalog contained every imaginable toy under the sun that you could think of. And we called it the Wishbook, and I'm sure you've heard that expression. We called it the Wishbook because we would go through it as kids and, kind of circle the things that we wished we could get for Christmas. And then, before you wrote your letter to Santa, you would go through the Wishbook and you'd have a billion things that you circled, and then you kind of whittle it down maybe to a dozen. So you didn't want Santa to think that you were, greedy. So this was a ritual that I went through, and I spent hours in that catalog around Christmas time, fantasizing of what would be the greatest things that I could get out of it. I think I spent more time in that catalog than I did in any other, periodical publication, with the exception of perhaps the TV Guide, because the TV Guide is another kind of dinosaur thing that you may not really understand unless you're around my age. I believe the TV Guide is still out there, but when I was a kid growing up watching television, and boy howdy did I watch a lot of television. in the early 60s through the end of that decade. Um, there was, really only three networks and a couple of local channels because I grew up in the Eastern Market near New York City and Philadelphia. So I had a Philly local channel and I had a couple of New York local channels like WPIX and WNEW, which were local channels. And they would run syndicated, strip shows. They were called because some of the content was stripped out so they could add commercials. So you would come home from school every night and at 6 o'clock you could watch reruns of Star Trek, for example, every night, 5 days a week. So that's what those local, and then they had a lot of kids programming as well, especially on the weekends. So that's what those local channels did. But anyway, my point is, and then there was the three networks, ABC, CBS, NBC. And you have to remember, this is not cable. This is broadcast over an antenna. So, this was free TV, believe it or not, that came into your house. And the price you paid for free TV was to sit through ads. And many of those ads were, toy ads, especially on Saturday morning. So that's where the Sears catalog and television overlapped. But my point is, in the TV guide, is that since we only had really one TV in the house, and there was no way to shift time. In other words, you couldn't videotape anything. You couldn't live stream anything. I mean, you couldn't, stream on demand like you can now. Everybody has their own television network now because you can program for yourself whatever you want to watch. But in those days, it was broadcast television, and at 9 o'clock, you had to be there in order to see whatever program you wanted to see at 9 o'clock on whatever channel. And if you missed it, you had to wait till maybe the summertime when they maybe deigned to show it to you again, and so that was the reruns. But and often you were out playing in the summertime, so you weren't watching a lot of TV like you were in the winter and during school time. So at any rate, you would pore over the TV guide to decide what you were going to watch that week, because TV Guide had listings for all the shows, and they also had articles too. And I think possibly rivaling the Sears Christmas catalog was the fall preview of the TV Guide, because in that fall preview they would have color pictures, publicity pictures of the cast and a description of all the upcoming shows. So, you would open the TV guide and you'd see, coming, this full Batman, or, the Man from U.N.C.L.E., and it would have a description of it. And so you could pore over that fall preview, which was nice and thick. It was like a double issue, and you could see what was coming. And for a TV baby like me, that was extraordinarily exciting. Well, the Sears catalog was on that level of excitement. So the concept of the Sears catalog was you saw it, you ordered it, it arrived in the mail. And now you're seeing what I mean, because that's, to me, is part of the appeal and the nostalgic appeal to me of Pick-a-Brick, is that I can go online, which, my laptop is now the equivalent of my Wishbook when I hit the Pick-a-Brick Lego site, because there it is, and it's nicely organized. I can go to the medieval section, and I can, or I can go to a set that I want to look for a part in, and I can find all the parts that are available in that set. So to me, it's kind of like the Wishbook, because when I put in a Pick-a-Brick order, I agonize over it for a good 2 to 3 weeks before I put in the order. So I'm filling my cart with parts, thinking, oh, well, this would be cool. Maybe I need 10, black falcons in their full regalia. Well, maybe I don't need 10. Maybe I need 10 forestmen. Well, maybe I need 5 of each. And I'll take them in and put them out of the cart until I finally decide, I'm going to pull the trigger and I'm going to make this order. Now, the thing with Pick-a-Brick is until recently, they had bestsellers and then they had kind of regular parts, and the regular parts came from Europe. but I think they're doing some remodeling right now, so those parts aren't available, at least not yet. So only the best sellers are available. But when I put in my first few Pick-a-Brick orders, I had to be certain that the stuff from Europe was not in there, because otherwise I would be waiting. Sometimes it takes 60 days to get that order, and I just don't have the patience for that. So I would only buy, and I still only buy, bestseller parts where they're fulfilled out of Lego's warehouses in the United States. And I have to say, I've been extremely pleased with the speed and the accuracy of a Pick-a-Brick order. I have yet to get a Pick-a-Brick order, and I'm going to jinx myself right now, but I've yet to get a Pick-a-Brick order, a bestseller order, that had one piece missing, which is really kind of extraordinary to me, because although I guess I shouldn't be surprised, because it's rare that I build a set and have a piece missing. Interestingly enough, when I first started building, I had all kinds of pieces missing. The first couple sets I built, I had like 5 pieces missing in each set. And, if you're a Lego fan, you're laughing along with me right now, because you realize that that was my problem. Undoubtedly, they were stuck in a bag somewhere. Undoubtedly, they were under a table, because, Lego is super sophisticated in its order fulfillment and the way they package those sets, where it's extremely rare, I have discovered, to have a part missing. And now when I build, I'm a reasonably experienced builder now. I have built probably the last 6 sets I built, I had not a piece missing, which reminds me of like the Mark Twain quote, which is something like, when I was 16 years old, my father was the stupidest man I'd ever met. I could barely stand to be in the room with him. But by the time I was 21, I was amazed at how much he'd learned. And that's kind of my journey with missing parts in a Lego set. Is when I first started building, I thought to myself, golly, if only Lego would be more careful in the way they package their sets and didn't have all these darn pieces missing. And then what I come to have realized is, in my experience in building, I realized that I'm much more careful in opening the bags. I'm checking the bags to be sure parts are in them. I'm checking to make sure that a part hasn't fallen out as I poured the bag into a container to sort. So it's user error, which is exactly what the situation has been with me and Lego pieces missing. So anyway, now you can see the kind of appeal for someone who's since 1954 with Pick-a-Brick, and why the anticipation, just like the anticipation was in waiting for your, Sears stuff to come through at Christmas, the anticipation of getting it in the mail is almost just too much to stand. And I absolutely, that's one of the most pleasurable things about the entire experience is the weight. And then getting that plastic bag that's sealed along with an inventory list, and the joy of not even opening it, but turning it over. So because the plastic bag on one side, it has writing on it and the Lego logo and some kind of warnings about the pieces, and then on the other side it's clear and you can see the contents of the bag, and it's heat sealed. So it's just a big old bag of Lego parts. And to me, one of the great pleasures is to turn that bag over to the clear side and just kind of wiggle it around to see, like, there's just the layers of magnificent parts that I ordered, to then have the pleasure of opening, and then opening it and then sorting like with like, and making sure all the pieces are there. And like I said, I've never had a piece missing. And it reminds me of kind of, counting inventory when I worked in my father's store as a kid. He'd get inventory and groceries, a case of groceries, whatever, that would be delivered, and you'd do a count. and you'd have an inventory list. You'd do a count, you make sure everything was there. And and it's a very similar process with Pick-a-Brick. Just a lot of fun to do, and each piece is illustrated on that inventory list, so it's really easy to tell what's there and what's not there. And occasionally, you'll get something that's not there because it's out of stock, and then they'll note that, and you've been refunded. But more likely than not, I'll get an extra piece rather than having a piece missing. And that happened in my most recent order of skeletons. I think I ordered a dozen skeletons, and I got a couple extra legs that I didn't order, but I guess either they counted wrong, but I doubt it, or they just threw in some extra parts. It's goodwill. So that's the modern equivalent of my Wishbook. And, just to get a Pick-a-Brick order becomes a red letter day for me. And I try to put in, I would say every month or so, I put in a Pick-a-Brick order. And they've been averaging around $100, but really the minimum that I have to watch for is, I think it's $35. That's the threshold for not paying any shipping with the domestic order, the order of the bestseller. So I make sure that I'm at that $35. And like I said, in the old days, I made sure that I hadn't picked any non-bestseller parts. And I imagine that eventually, when that comes back online, the non-bestseller, I will try one of those orders. Parts that I can, live without immediately, and just to see how long it takes, just to have the experience of seeing how long it really does take to ship from overseas to here and get those parts. Because I've heard various things, and I imagine it just depends on on the luck of the carrier pigeon that carries it across the ocean for you. So Pick-a-Brick. So that's the first topic I wanted to discuss. Now this week, I received a bunch of skeleton minifigs as part of my Pick-a-Brick order. And if you've watched my since 1954 video on YouTube for this week, where I do my lore and talk about what I integrated this last week into my Lego fantasy world, you'll see that I did a lot with skeletons this week. I bought another dozen skeletons. I had bought a previous order of them that I used as a kind of ground army. And one of the things I did in that ground army was I tricked them out with white helmets, white shields, and white swords. So they were all kind of bleached bone. And I just really loved that look. But I've created a kind of character that's a winged skeleton. And it's used the wings from the Dungeons and Dragons Ranger character, and I added some pieces to that to make that unique, which I describe over in my video this week. And so I bought a bunch of parts for that. And then what was most exciting to me, and the reason I wanted it, was in the summer I built the 3-in-1 pirate ship. And I missed Barracuda Bay. I missed that big set because I hadn't started building yet. I'm new at this. It's only since the early summer of 2024 that I've been at it. And the set was retired, and I made a pledge to myself not to buy retired sets because there's just so much that I can build. So that's one of the stupid rules I have for myself. The other stupid rule is not to buy any of the Bricklink special order sets, which is idiotic because I love Castle, and many of you have pointed out how idiotic that is. But I do have a space. I have a lack of space, and I have to draw the line somewhere. So the place I drew the line was not messing with those sets yet. There's always a first time, and I know I'm going to see a set eventually because I do check the sets that come available. I know eventually I'll see a set that I'll just have to have, but right now it's that, and I don't buy retired sets. But anyway, the pirate ship that was available, luckily there was a pirate ship available because I just had a jonesing for a pirate set because I bought the El Dorado Fortress, which was, I just love that set. That's fantastic, and I still have to figure out a way to get that into my fantasy castle realm. And I think probably I'll figure out some sort of time warp thing to be able to put that set out because it's just fantastic. But anyway, I wanted a pirate ship to go with it, and that was the one that was available. And I'd heard some mixed things about it because the sails are brick built and not they're not fabric sails. But I have to tell you, I loved that set, and it was so much fun to build. I love 3-in-1 sets in general. And I just loved the fact that everything's brick built. I that really appeals to me, and so that has found a home now in my fantasy kingdom my fantasy castle kingdom, because I decided finally that the way to integrate it was to make it a ghost ship and to put animated living skeletons on it that are a skeleton army. And so I just had a lot of fun this last week building a bunch of winged skeletons and also some regular troop skeletons that are being carried by that vessel to attack the kingdom. And that's why I've come to realize, I think, that one of the most versatile figures around is the skeleton minifigure. And they're less expensive, I think, to buy and build an army of than our traditional minifigs, like the Lion Knights or the Black Falcons. So if you haven't built one, I would highly recommend that you consider it. At least get 5 or 6 and build a squad. They're just so much fun because you can change the heads out for other kind of gruesome looking heads. There's a lot of really great Ninjago heads, and I really look forward in the future to kind of messing with different heads for the skeleton bodies, just to see what I can come up with. So that's kind of what I've been up to this week, and I've been really, really happy with the continuation of my lore. But also, last time I built the Lion Knights castle, and I finally finished it, and it just looks so great as kind of the anchor to my fantasy kingdom. So this week I intend to start building the medieval village, and it looks like it's built in 2 sections. And I think I'm going to build the section with the tower first, because, like I said, I have limited space in the winter time here, and I'll if it's divided that way, if there's like 2 books and one is the section with a castle and the other is the other section, I'll leave the other section for the summertime, and I'll just build that castle section, because my idea is that it's kind of a lookout, a watchtower as part of the town for the big castle, to kind of warn when some enemies are approaching. So that's what I'm going to work on this week. I'm really looking forward to the excitement of doing that. What are you working on? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. If you're listening to this on YouTube, you can just leave me a comment. If not, and you're listening in a traditional podcast space, by all means, contact me at since 1954 podcast at gmail.com. That's since 1954 podcast at gmail.com. Until next time, here, let me give you that sound again. Oh, I hope you put it in a pick-a-brick order soon. This is Tom Bray since 1954. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great week.